This is a little panel that I've called Fantasy, it's the wrong way around. It should be Fantasy Formation Season 3. So the idea is that He-Man and She-Ra didn't finish after 2 seasons. What would have happened in Season 3? And thinking about what James has just done with The Return of Faker, which is, essentially our first new episode in how many years? 30, 33? No, when did She-Ra finish? 87, 86? So 32 years. It's pretty exciting. It got me thinking, what could we create as Season 3? So it's just a bit of fun, really. It does require a little bit of interactivity. So I'm going to need you to get involved, because otherwise I'm just going to read these premises to you, and that's not much of a panel. So I suppose time to be a little bit creative and share your thoughts. I know I've had loads and loads of thoughts over the years, my own fan fiction of what could have happened in, beyond She-Ra's 93rd episode. But these were some premises that were approved, but never actually made it to the screen. You might be familiar with some of them. The Heart of Dark Hope's quite a well-known She-Ra one. I've had to squish it down a little bit because it's actually a really, really long premise. And these are just some that I thought were quite sort of unique takes on episodes that would have been quite interesting to see. So should we run through those? We might as well, rather than people just reading them. So some He-Man ones. To teach a prince, worried about their son's continued irresponsibility, the king and the queen send Prince Adam to a special sorcerer who's said to work wonders with such children. Along with other errant heirs from the universe, the sorcerer tries to make Adam more kingly. Skeletor seizes the opportunity to try and kidnap the heirs to use as pawns against their powerful parents. Thought that would be quite interesting because it sort of expands the universe as well. You've got potential for lots more, not a lot more royalty, more kings and queens, and obviously, Skeletor's expecting all the princes and princesses to rebel, but little does he know that actually Adam's probably going to turn into He-Man and save the day. So I thought that was quite nice. The Stolen Spirit, this was a really early She-Ra one, actually, and it reminds me a little bit of the Ladybug book, Spirit is Kidnapped. People know that one? Thanks to Bo's irresponsibility, Spirit's kidnapped by horse thieves who are in turn captured by horsemen, collecting horses for Hordak. Bo tries to get Spirit back and winds up captured by Catra, who's overseeing the horse roundup. She-Ra and Madame Raz go to the Horde cavalry camp to free Bo and Spirit. They also free all the other horses in the bargain. Pretty straightforward, but Spirit as a character didn't get a huge amount of airtime in the series, so it's quite nice to give him a little bit of exposure, I suppose. A little bit like For Want of a Horse there. Working vacation, a weekend vacation for Prince Adam and Tina on the Isle of Mirth turns into a disaster when the island's wicked magistrate transforms the inhabitants into ferocious werewolves. I thought that was just a really nice sort of unexpected twist to a holiday. Last thing you expect to happen is suddenly just expect, the locals to be these, rabid werewolves. I thought that could be quite a fun sort of maybe scary episode. The Heart of Dark Hope. This was the big She-Ra one that I wish had been. Shadow Weaver uses her vile magic to create a Nightwalker, a small mystical hunter. The Nightwalker finds Light Hope at the Crystal Castle. Dark Hope was the original name for Light Hope, in case you weren't aware of that. I don't quite know why, it doesn't have the same ring to it. But steals away his power. They venture into Light Hope's strange world and find the Nightwalker imbued with his power. She-Ra, He-Man and the Sorceress fight a pitched battle against the Nightwalker and combine their powers to defeat it. This, for me, has the makings of the best episode ever. I don't know about you, but, you've got... I imagine Hordak could be in there somewhere as well. Shadow Weaver, She-Ra, He-Man, Sorceress, Light Hope. Obviously, the Horde never found the Crystal Castle, so how are they going to deal with that angle? And I think, a great big battle. If you imagine the environment in the Stone and the Sword episode, a great big battle in that underworld sort of fire pit. That, why did that not get made? That could have been instant classic, I reckon. I have got a few more. There's one about a poltergeist invading the Palace of Eternia, and it turned out it was a distant relative of the spirit of Grayskull. Fountain of Youth was where some of the heroes in He-Man took a sip from this mystical fountain and they became children again. I thought that would be quite a nice opportunity to use some of the model footage of Prince Adam as a kid, Cringer as a little kitten, and who else was it Orko in there? Teela. Oh, of course, we got Teela as a teenager as well. We got that footage. What else we got? Oh, the Silver Knight. This sounds like quite an interesting one because it put a little twist on quite a sort of a told tale, I suppose, in that He-Man challenges by this mysterious knight, towering warrior working for Skeletor. Turns out that the Silver Knight is the strongest woman in the universe. He's obviously predated She-Ra, and she may be too powerful for He-Man to handle. So, thinking about an audience in the 80s seeing this massive, great, towering knight, probably just assume, oh, that's a guy. Suddenly, take the helmet off, and they've got a Brienne of Tarth-like warrior. And I thought that was quite a nice twist on. I like the Red Knight, quite a nice twist on the tale. Some other She-Ra ones. These were all Robert Lamb's, actually, and none of them had titles. They were literally what they call story springboards, and the idea would be that they'd get approved and they'd then get fleshed out. Never got that far, but these are my three favourite ones from those. So while visiting Froster, Bo falls into a deep crevice. She-Ra rescues him and they discover the frozen form of a first one. So for me, like the episodes of She-Ra that delved into Etheria's history, there were so few and far between. You've got things like the Crown of Knowledge, a little bit in Treasure of the first ones, and I just think that Etheria's history is so rich. We only ever got hints, of the first ones and King Jared and the backstory of the planet. That something like this could be really interesting to sort of unlock some of those secrets. And what happens with that first one? Is it literally just a history lesson, or is it like an evil first one? Where would you go with that? I think that's quite curious. The one underneath is an air battle episode with Stratos, who obviously was never in She-Ra, so that was interesting. And he takes on Voltak in an air attack. So you've got Stratos, who's never been in She-Ra, and then Voltak, who was rarely seen. That's quite an interesting battle. And the Rebellion trying to work out, who's sort of spying on them, how they know their every move. And then this one at the bottom, a young boy joins up with the equivalent of the Horde scouts and finds that he gets more than he bargained for. His sister, meanwhile, throws her sympathies to the rebels and through them rescues her brother. So this made me think a bit of book burning. The episode in the schools where they're burning the books, they're trying to stop the teacher from teaching history and telling the kids the truth. And if you look at Etheria like our world, with the Horde being the leader of the world, it kind of stands to reason that you'd have young recruits, training to be Horde soldiers or, the Horde soldiers of the future. So I thought this was quite interesting from a young person's point of view as well. If you're sort of 7, 8, 9 years old and you're watching, this series and you actually see someone reflected back your own age doing the scouts, it's potentially quite dark as well. But I think that only makes the world bigger and for me more interesting, because it's real. It feels more tangible. And also, I think there was another line, I haven't typed it, that said possibility for crossover. So they may have been thinking that, we can reflect the relationship between He-Man and She-Ra in these two kids as well. So those are some really nice premises. I'm sure more will come to light in the future. But before they do, and this comes onto us and our own ideas for fan fiction, I'd like to know from you guys what you think season 3 could have become. So for He-Man or for She-Ra. So thinking about He-Man, for example, She-Ra was never in He-Man episodes. But by episode 131, would she come over to Eternia? She only ever did the Christmas special, and I was always a bit miffed that she never came over, and he always came over to Etheria to help out. But what would those episodes look like? He-Man and She-Ra against Skeletor and Eternia sounds kind of fun. Also, thinking about what toys came out that never made it. She-Ra season 2 is full of lots of the new characters. You've got Peekaboo, Spinnerella, Natossa, Flutterina, Entraptor's in it, but then you've also got a lot of the Masters of the Universe characters come into it. You've got the dinosaurs are in Assault on the Hive. Snout Spout comes back. So where would those characters be integrated into the world? What guest characters would you like to see return, and how would you bring them in? Do people know about the Silaxian Wars? I'm guessing a few people probably do. Yeah, I'll summarise quickly. So Huntara is obviously one of the big fan favourite characters, and she's got her own episode in season 1. Season 2 brought back a lot of fan favourite characters. So General Sunder came back, Octavia came back, Inspector Darkney came back. And I think a lot of people were wondering, well, what about Huntara after this great big, drum roll of an entrance and having an episode named after her? Why didn't she come back in season 2? But she was planned to come back. And the Silaxian Wars was meant to be her sequel, and they got so far as to actually storyboarding this episode. And if you ever get the BCI DVDs, the storyboards for the Silaxian Wars are on, I think it's season 2? Is that right? Yeah, I think it's season 2, because it actually had the production number of 78, which is when Whispering Woods last bloomed, which makes sense that they actually, put another episode in place. The talk is that it was going to be the most violent episode Filmation had ever done. Some of the storyboards of Huntara, she's got her swords like this, and she's dripping with sweat, and she's got this really ferocious look on her face. And the premise was, it's a bit unclear what they're doing, but it's basically Horde Prime against the whole of Silax. So he sees them as an intergalactic threat after Huntara has come along and, shown herself to be a force to be reckoned with. And Horde Prime is like, no more. The Silaxians have got a secret power that he wants as well. So we meet, I think we meet her husband or her brother, I can't remember, one of the two, and a few other characters. And it's this great all-out war between the Silaxians, She-Ra, and loads of stock footage of Horde troopers and tanks. But it was meant to be an all-out war. So it's a shame they shelved it. I think it would have been quite a good episode. So that's the guest characters. What other sort of storylines would you give to existing characters, given what we know about their backstories and personalities? So for me, someone like Glimmer, I think was criminally underwritten. Suddenly she's the leader of this rebellion at the start. Adora comes in, and then suddenly she's just a princess. And she's just a princess for like another 88 episodes. She has a bit of a problem with Adora and Glimmer come home, and they fall out a little bit in small problems. But I reckon there was so much there for that relationship that I don't think Glimmer wanted to be a princess. She wanted to fight. She wanted to save her planet. And suddenly Adora's come in and gets a really, really easy ride. How would that make her feel? I reckon there's kind of an untapped, lots of untapped potential for that. Filmation's tone as well. So obviously, the Filmation series was for kids, but it had its mature moments as well. Think about the problem with power. That's usually sort of considered as the most adult one. But nobody died. We thought that He-Man killed a man, and that's what made it such a brilliant episode, but no one actually died. So there were no kind of blood or guts. I don't think it'll go anywhere too gritty, shall we say. Also things surprising. Things like the Silver Knight, we just looked at that premise. How could you kind of surprise the audience by flipping something, putting a new twist on an old tale. So this is the big experiment, and this is now, is it going to work? What kind of ideas have we got? I can talk about my ideas, but I'm curious to think what you guys, with if you write fan fiction, if you just kind of imagine stuff, how you would have liked season 3 to look for He-Man or for She-Ra, or even for like a big one in general. Is anyone brave enough to say, hey, I think this would be cool?
I would have liked to see someone switch sides.
Okay.
Like She-Ra's bunch of princesses. One of her people might be looking forward for a future in the Horde, or otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Who would you go with?
I have no real idea about that.
I think there's potential there for Glimmer. When you look at Glimmer's character, you know,
someone
she's
who's not as happy with the role they got or
Yeah.
development,
yeah.
or try to save their people by this deception.
Yeah.
Of course it would not work like that.
When you look at an episode like Glimmer Come Home, she's probably the most corruptible of the female characters, of the female heroes. Seahawk obviously went sort of the other way, didn't he? He was he was a baddie, but he wasn't really a baddie, and then became a goodie.
It was a rogue.
Sorry?
It was a rogue.
He was a rogue, yeah, exactly. What about the Horde? What do you think of, like, could any of them become heroes? Have they got any kind of heroic streaks? Are any of them redeemable?
Maybe Interrupter, don't know.
I mean, yeah, they didn't explore Entraptor enough, really. She got two big episodes and then 2 cameos. I think she was a bit wasted, really. We know nothing about her. Yeah.
Would be a possibility.
Or something like Redemption for Shadow Weaver, turning back to her origins and yeah.
Yeah, she's known goodness, hasn't she? So she could change her ways. I wonder what that could look like. Yeah.
Well, and as a subject, I was wondering about Froster because I think the person is very undeveloped. I mean, she has the ice colors in the north, but I think there would be a lot of material to see what we could do about this frozen wasteland. The combination with the Horde or with the Great Rebellion. And I think to remember that they were developing some figures or action figures for this line, for Froster's sister and Froster's I don't know. So just several persons who could be added to this kind of Carthage Hill and North problem.
Yeah. No, I
So
think
it
you're
would be
right.
interesting to see another direction of this person.
Yeah,
this character.
and more of Etheria as well. You know, what's it like up there? We have 1 episode out of 93. Surely, if you were up there that much, would you feel isolated? You know, how's that going to make you respond to the war that's sort of, going on there? Yeah, I think, and you're right. There was Wave 2 was originally, well, I think it was just discussed. It was going to be purely Froster's people. Now that's too much for me, I think. But she had a cat. She had a sister. There was a volcano villainess called Volcana. Actually, there was another Robert Lamb story that was shelved called Amber Waves of Flame, and this villain Volcana went through lots of different changes. And first she was a villain called Amber, and then she was Volcana, and then they brought Amber back, and then Amber was going to be like a heroic equivalent to Volcana, but all in Froster's world. I don't know if they were going to do Castle Chill as well, but quite possibly. So yeah, I think that's really, really untapped, and maybe Froster could help the Horde. Could she? I don't know. That's an interesting episode. Yeah. What would it take? What would it take for her to, compromise her morals? What's her moral code about? Does she just want to protect her kingdom, or is there more to it than that? I don't know. It's interesting. Anybody else have any other kind of suggestions how you saw, like, maybe He-Man's, season 3 becoming? Yeah.
Or maybe we could add Double Trouble, because I think she had a toy but never had an appearance in the series.
Yeah,
Right?
never in it. That's right.
And perhaps you could try to find out does she have conflicts in her mind, whether to be good or evil, or is she just a spy?
Yeah.
This would be interesting, I think.
Yeah.
Or where does she come from at all?
Yeah.
Where she lived.
I'm trying to remember what it was. If it was in the series Bible or something else. She was Glimmer's cousin.
Cousin of Glimmer.
Yeah. From a kingdom called Greenglade. But again, we don't know much about it, and it wasn't explored. It's not canon. It's not considered canon anyway.
She doesn't have the typical bride moon clothes.
She looks like a knight, actually, doesn't
Yes.
she? So yeah, could she have some sort of, I don't know, fighting background? It's maybe a bit too much for She-Ra's world, in the Filmation world anyway. But yeah, given that she was never in the series, I think she was in maybe 1 mini comic and maybe a book. Yeah. I never really liked the name Double Trouble, I have to say. He-Man and She-Ra's full of like gimmicks. but it's almost like a gimmick too far, you know. But I quite liked her. I don't know what was she called in Germany, because I know in France she was Doublia or Doublia.
No, it's Double Trouble.
Which is Double Trouble? Okay. I'm just thinking of like the European card backs, and I quite liked like Doublia or Doublia. It's like, you know, double agent name, but in the, you know, Etherea's version of a double agent. But yeah, so there could certainly be a lot of trust issues with a character like that, because you never know where you stand with them. You know, is she a spy for the Horde? Is she a spy for the Rebellion? You know, she could just end up being like a really lone wolf. But yeah, a really interesting character to explore, definitely. Anybody else? Does anybody write here? No? We need some of the audio play, guys. So, okay, what about an ending? An ending to He-Man or an ending to She-Ra? I think we were speaking about it a minute ago, weren't we? You know, was an ending episode planned for She-Ra? It wasn't, because they wrapped things up very, very quickly. Season 2 is a bit of a mystery to me, in that there's a lot. Larry DiTillio was lost because he finished at the end of season 1. I think that was a real shame, because he just knew Etheria like pretty much nobody else. Robert Lamb didn't contribute either, and there were a lot of freelance writers who just wrote, you know, 1 or 2 episodes, and they're not the strongest episodes. To be putting it lightly. Check the book if you want to see my reviews. So I think Filmation was, I don't know, perhaps, you know, it was late in the day, maybe under a bit of pressure, struggling a little bit. What would people have liked to have seen from like a last She-Ra episode, like a final, proper farewell, swan song for She-Ra?
The only thing I could imagine is that all people of Etheria really doing the rebellion against the Horde.
It's going to take something big, isn't it? Because,
yes,
you know,
it has to be
intergalactic army and
a big battle at the Fright Zone
with everybody.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the Horde have got like so many different bases as well, haven't they? So you've got like, you know, Octopus Cove and Scorpion Hill and all these different places where the Horde, you know, reside. You'd almost need to attack all of those.
Yes.
So could you kind of imagine almost like a Secret of the Sword, like another 5-parter?
Just want to say, just some episodes where parts of the country are taken back by the Great Rebellion, and then these kingdoms unite against Hordak.
Yeah.
In the final episode.
Maybe the big ones, maybe a Mysticores, you know, Kingdom of Snows, Bright Moon, obviously, the big powers.
Yes.
It'd have to be magical,
and
wouldn't it?
A magical fight, but finally the people taking over.
And actually, maybe that's a good opportunity for Shadow Weaver to change her ways. You know, maybe. Maybe
down Hordak by some sabotage.
Yeah, maybe she sabotages something. Yeah, that'd be interesting. What then happens to the Horde? Obviously, like New Adventures, we got a final episode, didn't we? I think they left it sort of semi-open because they planned to, you know, go back to Eternia in season 2, and obviously that didn't happen. I don't know. I quite like the end of New Adventures because they tied it up and it was all, you know, nicely done. And I like the relationship of Skeletor and Critter as well. But with, you know, they were kind of so tiny compared to the size of the Horde, weren't they? So
the downfall of the Horde we're talking about would allow Adora to return to Eternia, or to return to the start, or to go to the start with He-Man. So they could develop this structure.
Yeah.
These ideas.
Do you think she'd want to? After she's lived her whole life on Etheria and got her friends there, so that'd probably be a bit of torment for her, maybe. You know, do I leave my friends? It's like in Battle for Bright Moon. You know, do I leave my friends and go home, or do I help and fight this planet? Well, now that we've got rid of the Horde, where does that leave us? You know, I think it's quite an interesting dilemma. But yeah, I wish there were more. Certainly.
She-Ra was a figure or hero of war, and maybe it would be better for the healing after without her.
Yeah, maybe. She's not a native Etherian, is she? So, if the Etherians want to take back their planet, does that mean they don't need She-Ra? So, yeah, it brings up a lot of questions, I suppose. What about He-Man? Can we see an ending between He-Man and Skeletor on Eternia? Ever? It's trickier, isn't it?
It's hard to imagine.
Yeah, because it doesn't have the same gravitas. There isn't the same urgency that there is to rid Eternia or Skeletor as there is, to rid Etheria of the Horde. Maybe Skeletor is just everlasting, and then Skeleton comes along. Hopefully not. Not a fan of Skeleton, just in case you were wondering. I don't know. Maybe they'd lock him up, and that would be that. And then He-Man would go off to Primus. So.
I would like to see Teela finding out that Prince Adam is He-Man and make it more episodes. More episodes.
Those like big reveals would be really good for the end, wouldn't they? What about Teela finding out about Sorceress being a mum? That'd be quite a big one as well, wouldn't it?
Would be a good conclusion to Teela's quest.
Yeah. What about the Sorceress passing over the mantle to Teela? I can't see Filmation killing off the Sorceress ever, but she did a bit in Teela's Triumph, didn't she? That was a pretty good episode. People familiar with that one? She puts the Sorceress's cloak on, and yeah, Linda Gary was just such a versatile voice actress for me that in that episode you can hear like hints of the Sorceress in her Teela voice, and she played the Sorceress as well. She's very talented. Great loss.
Yeah, I think Teela's too much of a warrior character, not so much a magician or a wise person. I can't imagine her being the new sorceress.
She wouldn't sit still.
Sorry? Someday, but she's destined to be the next sorceress.
Yeah, I think, that's...
How about fighting that destiny or rebelling against it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can't imagine her sitting still. I think she would want to be out there fighting. And then you've got this clash between your destiny, or your bloodline destiny, as it were, and who
like
you've become as a person. Yeah, that could be interesting.
Royal
as well.
or rebel.
Yeah. And how's she going to feel when She-Ra's back over as well? There was the plan for Mike Young Productions when they brought She-Ra in that Teela was going to become the sorceress. And actually, I think with all those ingredients in the pot, that's quite a nice sort of way to do it. Not to say that you can't have two strong, female leads, because that would be interesting as well. But I think it could feel a little bit crowded because She-Ra's such a strong presence in herself, and they would have want to, really drumroll that. What did people think about the Mike Young Productions? That stopped really suddenly, didn't it? There was no end. Yeah, that was a shame. I said it was going to be an experiment. We can talk amongst ourselves about our own kind of fan fiction and fan ideas, and a lot of people are customizers or do fan art and stuff. I think we've all got our own interpretation for things and where we'd like to see things go, and maybe we can kind of carry on that conversation in a non-panel way if people want. I'd be interested. So thank you for bearing with my experiment. It's interesting, and I think we're coming back later for Beat the Geek as well, which is going to be fun. So, and I don't know how that's going to work either. So,
we'll see.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's not just going to be like, it's going to be civil, right? I'm not going to get pelted with the tomatoes and the eggs and stuff. Cool. Thank you very much.
There's a reason why it's